When billionaire Elon Musk spots a familiar face in a news photo about homeless encampments in Los Angeles, his world turns upside down. The man with the unmistakable smile is Tafari Nelson, his best friend from childhood in South Africa. Once inseparable as boys who dreamed of reaching the stars together, life has taken them on drastically different paths. Shocked to find his brilliant friend living under a freeway overpass, Elon launches a desperate search across Los Angeles to find him. But when they finally reunite, Elon quickly realizes that simply offering money won't work. Tafari's pride runs too deep, and years of hardship have left scars that wealth alone can't heal. What Elon does next will challenge both men to confront their shared past and reshape their futures in ways neither could have imagined. It's not just about rescuing an old friend from poverty. It's about rediscovering a lost connection that might save thousands of others along the way. Clanton Lanfon Musk rubbed his tired eyes. The clock on his desk read 2:17 a.m. He should have been asleep hours ago, but his mind wouldn't slow down. New rocket designs, battery improvements, and artificial intelligence ideas raced through his thoughts. "Just 5 more minutes," he mumbled to himself, scrolling through news on his tablet. His finger stopped at a headline: "Los Angeles homeless crisis worsens." He nearly swiped past it, but something in the picture caught his eye. In the background of the photo showing a tent city under a highway overpass, a man was sitting on a milk crate. Something about his smile seemed familiar. Elon zoomed in on the image. The picture was grainy, but that smile, he knew that smile. "It can't be," he whispered. He sat up straight, suddenly wide awake. The man had a scraggly beard and wore a dirty baseball cap, but those eyes and that smile belonged to someone from long ago, someone from a different life back in Pretoria, South Africa, Tafari Nelson. Elon's heart raced. Tafari had been his best friend when they were boys. They had been inseparable from ages 6 to 10. They built model rockets together, dreamed of space travel, and protected each other from bullies. But then Elon's family had moved away, and despite promises to stay in touch, they had lost contact. And now here was Tafari, or someone who looked exactly like him, homeless on the streets of Los Angeles. Elon grabbed his phone and dialed. "Mr. Musk," his assistant's voice was thick with sleep. "Is everything okay? I need you to find someone for me, a homeless man in Los Angeles. I'm sending you a picture right now." "Sir, it's the middle of the night." "This is important. His name might be Tafari Nelson. He would be about my age, from South Africa, originally. I need you to find him. Use whatever resources are necessary. Private investigators, shelter workers, whoever can help." "May I ask why this is so urgent?" Elon paused. How could he explain the flood of memories that hit him? The afternoon spent launching water rockets in Tafari's backyard. The time Tafari stood up to 3 older boys who were picking on Elon for being the weird kid. The nights they spent looking at the stars, promising each other they'd go to space someday. "He's an old friend," Elon said simply, "and I think he needs help." "I'll get on it first thing in the morning," Jenna promised. "No, now. Start now." Elon's voice softened. "Please. And when you find him, don't approach him yet. Just confirm his location and identity." After hanging up, Elon couldn't sit still. He paced his home office, pulling up old photos on his computer. There weren't many from his childhood in South Africa, but he found one. A school picture from Pretoria Boy Primary. 25 children lined up in rows, and there in the front, side by side, stood Elon and Tafari, gap-toothed grins on both their faces. Elon touched the screen. How had Tafari gone from being the son of an engineer and a doctor to homeless on the streets? What had happened in the 40-plus years since they'd seen each other? Morning came, and with it, a flood of emails and texts about his companies. But Elon could barely focus. By noon, there was still no word from Jenna about Tafari. Elon canceled his meetings for the day, something he almost never did. "Find anything?" he asked when Jenna called. "Not yet. The encampment in the photo is under the 110 freeway, but the people there say the man you're looking for moved on about a week ago. We're checking other locations. I have 5 people working on this. Make it 10. Days passed. The search expanded to all of Los Angeles County. Elon received regular updates, but none contained what he wanted to hear. The man in the photo seemed to have vanished. A week after starting the search, Elon sat in the back of his Tesla as his driver took him to a SpaceX meeting. His phone buzzed. "We think we found him," Jenna said. "A shelter in Inglewood recognized the photo. He stayed there 3 nights ago, but left. They said he usually hangs around MacArthur Park during the day." "Cancel my meetings," Elon said to his driver. "Take me to MacArthur Park." "Sir," Jenna's voice filled with concern, "I don't think it's safe for you to go there personally. Let me send someone. I'll bring security." "I need to see him myself," Elon said, his voice leaving no room for argument. "And Jenna, thank you." At the park, Elon wore a plain baseball cap and sunglasses. 2 security guards in casual clothes stayed nearby, trying to blend in. Elon walked the paths, showing Tafari's picture to anyone willing to talk. Most people ignored him. Some asked for money. A few recognized him despite his disguise and asked for selfies, which he politely declined. As the afternoon wore on, Elon's hope began to fade. Then a woman pushing a shopping cart stopped when she saw the picture. "You looking for Taff?" she asked. Elon's heart jumped. "Yes, Tafari Nelson." "You know him?" "He reads books to my kids sometimes. Smart man. Knows all about stars and planets." She pointed toward a cluster of trees. "He likes to sit over there, away from everybody. Says it's peaceful." Elon thanked her and walked toward the trees. His mouth was dry. What would he say after all these years? Would Tafari even recognize him? Under the shade of a large oak sat a man with tattered clothes and a worn backpack beside him. He was reading a book, his finger carefully tracing each line. Though thinner and weathered by time and hardship, the face was unmistakable. Elon motioned for his security to stay back. With each step, memories flooded back, running through sprinklers on hot summer days, building a clubhouse in Tafari's yard, staying up late talking about aliens. Elon stopped a few feet away. "Tafari Nelson," he said. The man looked up, squinting against the sun behind Elon. "Who's asking?" "An old friend from Pretoria." Tafari stood slowly, caution in his eyes. Then recognition dawned, and those eyes widened. "Elon." His voice was barely a whisper. "It's been a long time," Elon said, his own voice unsteady. Tafari shook his head in disbelief. "What are you doing here?" "Looking for you," Elon said. Tafari glanced at his dirty clothes, then at Elon's expensive if casual attire. Shame crossed his face. "How did you find me?" "I saw you in a news photo. I recognized your smile." Tafari ran a hand over his face as if trying to wipe away the years. "Well, now you found me. The great success story from Pretoria Boy Primary, standing next to the great failure." "No," Elon said firmly. "I found my friend, and I want to know what happened." Tafari's shoulders slumped. "It's a long, sad story. Not one worth your time. I've got nowhere else I need to be." For a moment, Tafari seemed ready to walk away. Then something shifted in his expression, perhaps a flash of their old friendship or simply exhaustion from a hard life. "There's a coffee shop at the edge of the park," Tafari said. "I'll tell you there, but I don't want your pity. And I don't want your money. Just your story," Elon promised, "and maybe a chance to keep an old promise we made under the stars a long time ago." Tafari looked puzzled, then his face softened. "You remember that?" "I remember everything," Elon said. "Friends forever, no matter what. If one of us gets to the moon first, he'll save a spot for the other." For the first time, Tafari smiled, the same smile from their childhood, the same smile Elon had recognized in a grainy news photo. And in that smile was a tiny spark of hope. "Let's get that coffee," Tafari said. "And after all these years, you're definitely buying." As they walked together across the park, Elon felt the weight of their different paths, his to unimaginable success, Tafari's to unthinkable hardship. But connecting them still was a childhood friendship, a shared love of stars and space, and a promise made by 2 boys in South Africa who dreamed of reaching the moon. Elon didn't know yet how he could help Tafari, but he knew finding him was just the beginning of a journey that would change both their lives. The coffee shop was quiet, tucked away on a corner with large windows that let in the afternoon sunlight. Elon and Tafari sat at a table in the back, away from curious eyes. A security guard stood discreetly by the door, keeping watch. Tafari wrapped his weathered hands around a steaming mug. "So," he said, "the richest man in the world buys me coffee. That's not something I expected today." Elon smiled. "And I didn't expect to find my best friend from primary school in Los Angeles." The word best friend hung in the air between them, a bridge across 40 years of separation. "We were inseparable back then, weren't we?" Tafari said softly. Elon nodded, memories washing over him. Remember Mrs. Botha's class? She made us sit apart because we talked too much, and we still passed notes anyway, Tafari chuckled. You were always drawing rocket ships on them. You were the one who taught me how to fold them so they would fly across the room. As they talked, the years seemed to melt away. Elon could almost see the boy Tafari had been, confident, brave, with a quick laugh and a quicker mind. Your family was well off, Elon said carefully. Your dad was an engineer for the mining company. Your mom was a doctor. What happened after we left? Tafari's smile faded. He looked down at his coffee. That's a story for another day, he said softly. Not all of us had the chances you did. Elon nodded. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. It's fine. Tafari waved his hand. But I'd rather talk about the good times right now. Remember the treehouse? And just like that, they were boys again, recalling the hideout they'd built in the mango tree in Tafari's backyard. Elon remembered every detail, the secret password, the pulley system they'd created to lift supplies, the star charts they'd pinned to the walls. We spent a whole summer on that thing, Elon said, and my dad helped us wire it for electricity. We had the only treehouse in Pretoria with a light bulb and a fan. Your dad was so patient with us. He taught us about circuits. He always said you were going to be someone important someday. Tarun's voice grew quiet, as if he was remembering something deeper. Looks like he was right. Elon thought about Tafari's father, tall and serious, but with kind eyes that crinkled when he laughed. He had taken the time to explain things to the boys, never talking down to them. What about the rocket contest? Elon asked. 6th grade science fair? Tafari's face lit up. We stayed up all night working on that water rocket. Everyone else just used bike pumps, but we built that pressurized launcher and we won first place, even though Mr. Peters was sure we'd blow something up. They both laughed, and for a moment it was as if no time had passed at all. You were always the brave one, Elon said suddenly. I was the weird kid, the one who got picked on. Tafari shrugged. Those bullies were idiots. I knew you were smart. Different, but smart. Elon remembered the day 3 older boys had cornered him behind the school. Tafari had appeared out of nowhere, standing between Elon and the bullies. Leave him alone, he had said. He's my friend. The bullies had backed down, not because they were scared of Tari, but because they respected him. You stood up for me, Elon said. No one had ever done that before. That's what friends do, Tafari said, taking a sip of his coffee. And look at you now. Seems like you did okay without me watching your back. Elon studied his old friend's face. Despite the hardship etched into every line, there was still pride there, still dignity, the same strong spirit that had drawn Elon to him as a child. What about our space promise? Elon asked. Tafari's eyes softened. I haven't thought about that in years. They had made the promise under a star-filled sky, lying on their backs in Ari's yard. Friends forever, no matter what. If one of us gets to the moon first, he'll save a spot for the other. I've been working on that promise, Elon said. SpaceX, the Mars projects. I'm trying to get us there. I know. I've seen the news. Tari's voice held no jealousy, only a quiet pride. You're doing what we always talked about. A weight settled in Elon's chest. All these years he'd been living their shared dream while Tari had somehow lost everything. Your daughter, Elon said. You mentioned her at the park. Tell me about her. Tafari's face transformed. Love erasing years of hardship. Zola. She's in college. Scholarship to UCLA. Studying astrophysics, if you can believe it. He pulled out a worn photograph from his pocket and handed it to Elon. A beautiful young woman with Tafari's eyes and smile, wearing a graduation cap and gown. She got her brains from her mother and her stubbornness from me. She's carrying on our dream, Elon said softly. She doesn't know, Tafari whispered. About my situation. She thinks I'm staying with friends, just going through a rough patch. His voice cracked. I call her from different phones so she won't know. Send her small amounts of money when I can, so she thinks I'm working. Elon handed the photo back, a plan already forming in his mind. But he knew offering charity would only push Tafari away. I should go, Tafari said, finishing his coffee. Thanks for the trip down memory lane. Where will you go? I have a spot under the 405. It's dry when it rains. Elon wanted to protest, to offer a hotel room, money, anything, but the pride in Tafari's eyes stopped him. Can we meet again tomorrow? Elon asked instead. Tafari hesitated, then nodded. Same time, same place. As Tafari stood to leave, Elon remembered something else. The notebook. Wait, do you remember our invention notebook? The one with all our ideas? Of course, we were going to be famous inventors. I still have it, Elon said. All these years, I kept it. For the first time, tears shone in Ari's eyes. You kept our notebook. I'll bring it tomorrow, Elon promised. As he watched Tafari walk away, Elon knew he had to find a way to help his friend that wouldn't hurt his pride. A way that honored their shared past and the dreams they once had. The answer, he realized, might be in that tattered old notebook, filled with the imaginings of two boys who had once promised to reach the stars together. Back in his car, Elon held his phone but didn't dial. His mind raced with possibilities. He could simply give Tari money, but he knew his friend would refuse it. He could offer him a job, but what kind of job would honor Tari's skills and pride? Where to, sir? His driver asked. Home, Elon said. I need to find something. That night, Elon dug through storage boxes in his home office. After an hour of searching, he found it, a blue notebook with rocket stickers on the cover, the edges worn and pages yellowed with age. The official invention notebook of Elon and Tari read the childish handwriting on the front. Elon sat on the floor and carefully opened it. Inside were drawings and notes from their childhood, designs for rocket ships, robots, and flying cars. Some were silly, like the homework-doing machine they had dreamed up. Others showed real promise, like their detailed plans for a more efficient solar panel. But it was on page 17 that Elon found what he didn't even know he was looking for, their design for emergency houses. The boys had created it after seeing news about a flood in another part of South Africa. They had drawn small shelters that could be quickly built, complete with rainwater collection and simple solar power. That's it, Elon whispered. The next morning, Elon called Jenna. I need you to set up a meeting with the engineering team at SpaceX and find a lab space near headquarters that isn't being used. What's this about? She asked. A new project. Something important. Elon met with Tafari at the coffee shop, as promised, the notebook tucked under his arm. Tafari's eyes lit up when he saw it. You really kept it? They spent hours going through the notebook, laughing at their childish ideas. When they reached the page with the emergency houses, Elon paused. Do you remember designing these? Tafari nodded. After the floods in Durban, my father said we had good hearts. What if we could make them real? Elon asked carefully. Not just emergency shelters, but something better, something that could help people living on the streets. Tafari's expression grew guarded. Is this your way of trying to help me? No, Elon said, though it wasn't entirely true. It's about using our old ideas to help many people, and I need your engineering background to make it work. I haven't worked as an engineer in years, Elon. I'm not exactly up to date. But you understand something most engineers don't, Elon said. What it's like to live without permanent shelter. Elon leaned forward. This isn't charity, Tari. This is a job offer, a real one. I need someone with your unique perspective. Tafari looked at the notebook, then back at Elon. I'll think about it. That's all I can promise right now. It wasn't the answer Elon had hoped for, but it wasn't a no. After Tafari left, Elon couldn't sit still. If Tari wouldn't accept his help directly, maybe Elon could help others like him and hope that eventually Tafari would join the effort. He called his team at SpaceX. I want to start a new project, low-cost, efficient housing units that can be quickly deployed in urban areas, similar to what we're developing for Mars habitats, but for Earth, for disaster relief. One engineer asked, No, Elon, not for disaster relief. Elon said, for the homeless, for people living on the streets right now. The next day, when Tafari didn't show up at the coffee shop, Elon wasn't surprised. Pride was a powerful force, but he wasn't giving up. I need to see where he lives, Elon told his security team. Under the 405, he said. Sir, those encampments aren't safe, his head of security protested. Then make sure I'm safe, Elon replied simply. That evening, dressed in jeans and a plain sweatshirt, Elon walked through the homeless encampment under the freeway overpass. His security team, dressed similarly, stayed close but tried to blend in. The conditions shocked him. Tents and makeshift shelters lined the concrete walls. Some people had nothing but cardboard to sleep on. The smell of unwashed bodies and garbage was overwhelming. Elon asked people if they knew Tafari. Most ignored him or asked for money. Some recognized him despite his casual clothes and were either excited or suspicious of why someone like him would be there. After an hour of searching, a woman in a wheelchair pointed to a small blue tent tucked in a corner. Taft's place, but he ain't there. Left this morning with his backpack, said he had thinking to do. Elon thanked her and gave her $20. When he comes back, can you tell him Elon came by? I'm an old friend of his. The woman studied his face. You look familiar. Elon just smiled. If you see him, please tell him I'll be at the coffee shop tomorrow at noon. For the next 3 days, Elon went to the coffee shop, but Tafari never showed. On the 4th day, Elon decided to take more direct action. He returned to the encampment with bags of food, blankets, and basic supplies. As he handed them out, he asked everyone about Tafari. Most said they hadn't seen him in days. Elon left supplies for him with the woman in the wheelchair, along with a note, "Friends forever, no matter what." That night, back home, Elon couldn't sleep. He'd found his childhood friend, only to lose him again. Had he been too pushy? Had his offer seemed too much like charity? His phone rang at 2 a.m., an unknown number. "Hello?" he answered, fully awake instantly. "It's me." Tari's voice was quiet. "I've been thinking about your offer." "Where are you?" Elon asked. "I looked for you. I know people told me." A pause. "I needed time to think, to decide if I could work with you without feeling like a charity case. I want to see this lab you mentioned. No promises beyond that." Relief flooded through Elon. "Tomorrow morning. I'll pick you up at the coffee shop." "No fancy cars," Tari warned. Agreed. After hanging up, Elon texted his team at SpaceX. "Emergency shelter project begins tomorrow. Have the lab ready." Then he texted Jenna. "Cancel all meetings tomorrow and find some work clothes my size. Nothing fancy." The next morning, Elon pulled up to the coffee shop in a used Honda Civic he'd had someone buy for him the night before. He wore work boots, jeans, and a plain t-shirt. Tafari was waiting outside, his backpack at his feet. He raised an eyebrow at the car. "Downgrading? You said no fancy cars?" Elon shrugged. "Ready to go?" Tafari picked up his backpack, hesitated for just a moment, then nodded. "Let's see this project of yours. But remember, I'm not making any promises." No promises. Elon agreed, but as they drove toward SpaceX headquarters, he couldn't help but feel hopeful. The journey to help his friend was just beginning, but at least now they were traveling it together. The drive to SpaceX was quiet. Tafari looked out the window, watching the neighborhoods change from rundown to industrial to the sleek business district. "I've seen your rockets on the news," Tafari finally said. "The ones that land themselves. Pretty impressive." "Thanks." Elon glanced at his friend. "We've come a long way from the water rockets we used to make." Tafari almost smiled. "Those were more fun." They pulled into a side entrance of the SpaceX complex. Elon had arranged everything carefully. No welcoming committee, no special treatment, just two old friends walking into a building together. "This way," Elon said, leading Tafari down a hallway to a lab space separated from the main facility. He punched in a code, and the door swung open. Inside was a large room with workbenches, computers, and fabrication equipment. On the walls were printouts of their childhood emergency house design, blown up and enhanced, alongside modern technical drawings that took the concept further. Tafari stepped into the room slowly, his eyes moving from one drawing to the next. "You've been busy." "It's just the beginning," Elon said. "The team started sketching ideas based on our old design, but it needs someone who really understands both engineering and," he hesitated, "and what it's like to be homeless." Tafari finished for him, his voice suddenly hard. "Is that why I'm here? To be your homeless consultant?" "No," Elon said quickly. "You're here because you're an engineer, because we came up with this idea together as kids, and yes, because you have insight that none of my other engineers have." Tafari walked to one of the workbenches and ran his fingers over a 3D model of a small shelter unit. "This insulation placement is wrong. It would be too cold at night." "See, that's exactly what I mean," Elon said. Tafari continued examining the model. "The door placement makes it vulnerable. When you're on the street, you need to see who's coming." Elon watched as Tafari moved around the lab, pointing out flaws and suggesting improvements. The engineer in him was still there, sharp as ever. "We could make something that actually works," Tafari said almost to himself. Then he turned to Elon, eyes narrowing. "But let's be honest, This is just a way for you to help me without making it feel like charity. It started that way, Elon admitted, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized it could be something important, something real. And where do I fit in this plan of yours? 3-month trial period. You work here, help develop these prototypes. The job comes with temporary housing nearby for practical reasons, so you can shower and rest properly while working. And after 3 months, if it works out, a permanent position. If not, you walk away with 3 months' salary saved up, no strings attached. Tafari looked around the lab again, then at his worn clothes and calloused hands. I haven't worked in an office in years, Elon. I haven't used a computer for engineering since they ran on Windows 95. You'll catch up. You were always smarter than me. That's not true, and you know it. It is true, Elon insisted. I was the weird ideas guy. You were the one who figured out how to make them work. For a moment, Tafari's face softened at the memory. Then his walls went back up. And what about Zola? If I take this job, she'll find out about everything eventually. Yes, but on your terms, when you're ready. Tafari's hands clenched and unclenched. He walked to the window and looked out at the SpaceX factory floor in the distance where rocket parts were being assembled. We used to dream about this, he said quietly, building rockets, going to space. We still can, Elon said. Not the same way we imagined, but still. Tafari turned back to face Elon. I can't be your charity case, Elon. I won't be the heartwarming story on the news about how the billionaire saved his homeless friend. No news, no story, just work that matters. Elon stepped closer. Look me in the eye, Tari. This isn't charity. I need someone who sees things differently, who can make this project work. Tafari held his gaze for a long moment, then he looked down at his hands, engineer's hands, despite everything they'd been through. 3 months, he finally said. Relief flooded through Elon. You won't regret it. I make no promises about that. Tafari's voice was stern, but there was a hint of his old humor in it now. About this temporary housing, it's an apartment near here, basic but clean, walking distance to the lab. I'd like to see it now. The apartment was on the 3rd floor of a modest building, 10 minutes from SpaceX. 1 bedroom, 1 bath, a small kitchen and living area. Simple furniture. Nothing fancy. Elon had made sure of that. Nonetheless, Tafari walked through it slowly, like a man in a dream. He touched the couch, opened the refrigerator, turned the water on and off in the sink. There's food, he said, looking at the stocked refrigerator. Just basics until you get your first paycheck, Elon said. Tafari sat down suddenly on the couch, overwhelmed. This morning I woke up on the ground under a freeway. Elon sat across from him, giving him space. And tonight you'll sleep in a bed. Why are you doing this, Elon? Really? We were friends 40 years ago. Kids. That's a lifetime ago. Because when I saw your face in that news photo, I remembered who I used to be. Before the money, before the companies. Just a weird kid with big dreams and one real friend. Elon's voice grew thick. You're part of who I am, Terry, even after all these years. Tafari looked away, blinking hard. I need a shower and then sleep. A real bed. Sound good? Tafari couldn't finish the sentence. I'll pick you up tomorrow at 8, first day on the job. At the door, Elon handed Tari a key, a prepaid credit card, and a new phone. Just until your first paycheck, he said again, heading off any protest. Engineer's toolkit. Tafari took them, his eyes shining with unshed tears. Thank you, he whispered, but this doesn't mean I'm staying past 3 months. 1 day at a time, Elon said. Get some rest. As Elon drove away, he felt lighter than he had in years. Finding Tafari had awakened something in him that had been sleeping for too long, a connection to his past, to the boy he had been with, all his dreams, fears, and hopes. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Tari's pride would continue to be a barrier. The project itself might face obstacles, but for tonight, his old friend had a roof over his head and hope for tomorrow. And sometimes that was enough to start changing a life. The next morning, Elon arrived precisely at 8. He found Tafari waiting outside the apartment building, freshly showered, his beard trimmed, and wearing new clothes from the closet Elon had stocked. You look better, Elon said. Amazing what a real bed can do. Tafari's voice was lighter than before, though still guarded. And hot water. I'd forgotten what it feels like to be truly clean. They drove to a small diner near SpaceX, rather than going straight to the lab. Elon had decided that before they started working together, he needed to understand what had happened to Tafari over the years. "I think it's time you told me your story," Elon said as they settled into a quiet booth in the back. "The whole story." Tafari stirred his coffee, staring into the swirling liquid. "It's not a happy one. I still want to hear it." Tafari took a deep breath. "After your family left South Africa, things changed. The political situation got worse. There were protests, violence. My father was active in the movement against apartheid. He lost his job at the mining company because of it." "I didn't know," Elon said. "How could you? We were kids and you were gone." Tafari shrugged. "Anyway, my father couldn't find work. We lost our house. My mother's salary as a doctor wasn't enough to support us the way we had been living." "That must have been hard. It was harder on my parents than on me. Kids adapt." Tafari sipped his coffee. "When I was 17, my father got a chance to come to America. A university in Boston offered him a teaching position, not engineering, just basic science classes, but it was something. We left everything behind and moved to Massachusetts. And then life happened. I worked hard in school, got a scholarship to MIT, became an engineer like my father. Got a good job at a tech firm in California. Met a wonderful woman named Naya. We married, bought a small house in Oakland." Tafari's face softened at the memories. When Zola was born, it felt like everything was perfect. "What went wrong?" Elon asked gently. Tafari's hands tightened around his coffee cup. "Nia got sick. Cancer. It happened so fast. 6 months from diagnosis to..." He couldn't finish the sentence. "I'm sorry," Elon said. "The American healthcare system," Tafari said bitterly. "Even with insurance, the bills were crushing. I spent every penny of our savings trying experimental treatments, anything that might save her. Nothing worked. After she died, I was left with a 5-year-old daughter and more debt than I could ever pay off." "But you kept working." "For years, I raised Zola on my own. My parents helped when they could, but they were getting older, living on my father's small pension. Then came the recession in 2008. The company I worked for downsized. I was laid off." "Couldn't you find another engineering job?" Tafari smiled sadly. "You think I didn't try? But I was over 50 by then, with skills that were becoming outdated. Younger engineers would work for less. I took whatever jobs I could find, retail, security guard, warehouse work, anything to keep a roof over our heads and Zola in school." He paused, taking another sip of coffee. "Then my parents died within months of each other. No more safety net. I had to sell our house to pay off the last of Nia's medical bills and my parents' funeral expenses. Zola and I moved to a small apartment." Elon listened, trying to imagine the slow erosion of Tafari's life, one hardship after another, wearing him down. Zola was smart, like her mother. She got a full scholarship to UCLA. "I was so proud." Tafari's voice filled with warmth when he talked about his daughter. "But the week she left for college, I lost my job again. Couldn't make rent. Stayed in a motel until the money ran out." "Why didn't you tell Zola?" Elon asked. "And ruin her chance? Make her quit school to help her old man?" Tafari shook his head firmly. "Never. I told her I was staying with friends, looking for work. I got a prepaid phone so she could call me. Found libraries where I could use computers to email her, say to protect her." "Any parent would do the same," Tafari said simply. "The hardest part wasn't being homeless. It was lying to my daughter, pretending everything was okay." "How long have you been on the streets?" "Almost 2 years now." Tafari's voice was matter-of-fact, but Elon could hear the pain beneath it. "I pick up day labor when I can, enough to send Zola a little money now and then so she thinks I'm working. I found places to shower, ways to keep clean. The library became my office, applying for jobs online, using their computers to stay connected to Zola, and she never suspected." Tafari looked down. "I don't know. Maybe she does and pretends not to protect my pride. Like father, like daughter." He looked up at Elon. "That's my story. From engineer to homeless in 20 years, not exactly a success story. But you kept Zola safe, got her to college. That's a success." "I suppose it is." Tafari seemed to straighten a bit. "She graduates next spring, wants to work for NASA someday like we dreamed of doing." Elon smiled. "One of us made it pretty close." Tafari smiled back. "SpaceX isn't NASA, but it's not bad." Elon laughed. Feeling the conversation lighten a bit, "We used to argue about which was better, working for the government space program or starting our own. I remember you always wanted to do it yourself. Tarun's expression grew serious again. That's why I agreed to your offer, Elon. Not because of the apartment or the job, but because some part of me still remembers those dreams we had. I still want to build something that matters. The housing project could help a lot of people. People like me, Tafari said quietly. Yes, Elon replied. So what do we do about Zola? Elon asked. She'll find out eventually that you're working for me, Tari sighed. I need time. Let me get settled, prove to myself that this is going to work, then I'll tell her everything. It's your decision, Elon said, but from one father to another, kids are stronger than we think, and they usually know more than we give them credit for. Maybe, Tari finished his coffee. For now, let's focus on work. I haven't done real engineering in years. I need to catch up. One step at a time, Elon agreed. Today, we get you set up in the lab, introduce you to the basic systems. No pressure. No pressure, Tafari repeated, but his voice was tense. Just returning to work after years of homelessness in one of the most advanced engineering companies in the world, run by my childhood friend who happens to be one of the richest men on the planet. Totally normal. Elon laughed, when you put it that way. For the first time since they'd reconnected, Tafari laughed too. A genuine, full laugh that made him look years younger. Life is strange, my friend. Very strange indeed. As they left the diner, Elon felt hope growing stronger. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. Tafari had a mountain of pride to overcome, years of hardship to process, and a difficult conversation with his daughter looming in the future. But today, they had made progress. Today, Tafari had shared his story, faced his past, and taken the first step toward a new future. And maybe, just maybe, their childhood dreams of reaching for the stars together weren't as impossible as they seemed. The SpaceX building buzzed with energy as Elon led Tari through the main entrance. Unlike their quiet visit to the lab the day before, today they walked straight into the heart of the operation. Engineers and technicians moved purposefully between workstations. Massive rocket parts filled the high-ceiling space. Tafari slowed his steps, taking it all in. This is overwhelming. You'll get used to it, Elon said. People glanced at them curiously. Some recognized Tafari from his visit yesterday. Others wondered who the newcomer was, walking alongside their famous boss in the lab. A young engineer named Marcus waited for them. Good morning, Mr. Musk, he said, then nodded to Tafari. Mr. Nelson, I've been asked to help you get acclimated to our systems. Thank you, Tafari said stiffly, clearly uncomfortable with the formality. Marcus is one of our best, Elon said. He'll show you the basics and get you set up with access to everything you need. Tafari nodded, his face a mask of concentration. Elon recognized that look from their childhood. It was how Tafari had always approached new challenges, with tense focus that hid his nervousness. I have meetings all morning, Elon said, but let's have lunch. I want to discuss something important with you. After Elon left, Marcus guided Tafari through the computer system's software and laboratory equipment. Though the technology had advanced dramatically since Tafari had last worked as an engineer, the principles remained the same. By noon, he was cautiously navigating the design programs, his confidence growing with each small success. Elon returned as promised, carrying 2 sandwiches from the company cafeteria. How's it going? Your systems are impressive, Tafari said. Different from what I used years ago, but I'm catching up. Marcus says you're a quick learner. He's being kind. Tafari unwrapped his sandwich. But I'll get there. They ate quietly for a few minutes. Tafari seemed lost in thought, occasionally glancing around the lab at the prototype shelter designs on the screens. So, Elon finally said, I mentioned I wanted to discuss something important. Tafari looked up, wary. More charity? No, Elon said. A proposal. He pushed aside his half-eaten lunch and pulled out a tablet. I've been working on something for years, something few people know about. He opened a file labeled Mars Habitat Program and turned the screen toward Tafari. This is my real goal for SpaceX, not just getting to Mars, but creating sustainable living spaces there, real colonies where people can live long-term. Tafari studied the designs, his engineer's mind immediately grasping the complexity of the challenge. Living on Mars, that's ambitious. It's necessary, Elon said, for humanity's future. But it means solving some incredibly difficult problems about shelter, resources, and survival in hostile conditions. He swiped to another screen showing detailed habitat designs. These are our current models. They work in theory, but there are still major issues with practical livability. What does this have to do with me? Tafari asked. Everything, Elon leaned forward. The emergency housing project isn't just about helping the homeless, it's a testing ground for Mars habitat concepts. Tafari frowned. I don't understand. Think about it, Terry. Living homeless, you learn to survive with minimal resources, to create shelter in hostile environments, to solve practical problems that most engineers have never faced. Understanding dawned on Tafari's face. You want me to help design Mars habitats, not just help lead a special division. Your experience on the streets gives you insights none of my other engineers have. Combine that with your engineering background and you're uniquely qualified. Tafari sat back, stunned. This isn't what I expected. It's not charity, Elon insisted. It's business. Smart business. I need someone who understands survival in extreme conditions, who knows what a shelter really needs to be livable, not just functional. Tafari stood and walked to the window, looking out at the rocket assembly floor. When we were kids, we dreamed of going to Mars together. I remember, and now you're seriously planning to make it happen? I am, Elon said. And I want you to be part of it. Tafari turned back, his face a mix of emotions. Why trust me with something this important? After all these years, after everything that's happened? Because I know you, Tafari. The real you. Not the homeless man under the freeway. Not the struggling father. Those are just circumstances. The real Tafari Nelson is the same person he always was. Brilliant, practical, and unafraid to speak truth to power. You used to tell me when my ideas were impossible. I need that honesty again. Tafari returned to the table and picked up the tablet, scrolling through the Mars habitat designs. He stopped at one image, pointing to a section of the structure. This air recycling system is overcomplicated, he said. Too many potential failure points, and these living quarters. He shook his head. They're too sterile. People need to feel at home, even on Mars, especially on Mars. Elon watched as Tafari analyzed the designs, pointing out flaws and suggesting improvements with growing confidence. This was the friend he remembered. Insightful, practical, seeing what others missed. So Elon finally asked, will you take the job, lead the Special Projects Division for 3 months, focusing on both emergency housing and Mars habitats? Tafari set down the tablet. Is this real, Elon? Not just a way to help me save face while you give me charity? It's real. Elon said, and it comes with real expectations. I need results, not just gratitude. Tafari was quiet for a long moment. I'd need to split my time between both projects. Of course. And I'd need freedom to assemble my own team, people who understand both engineering and practical survival. Within reason, yes. And my name stays out of the press. No heartwarming stories about your homeless friend. This is about the work, not about me. Agreed. Tafari took a deep breath. Then, yes, I accept. Relief washed over Elon's face. Good, we start immediately. One more thing, Tafari said, about Zola. We'll figure that out when you're ready, Elon said. Tafari nodded, then turned back to the designs. This water recycling system needs a complete overhaul, and the sleeping arrangements. He began sketching alternatives on a notepad already fully engaged in the work. Elon watched his friend transform before his eyes. From a man weighed down by hardship to an engineer tackling humanity's greatest challenges. This wasn't charity. This was restoration, giving Tafari back what life had taken from him. Purpose, dignity, and the chance to reach for the stars again. As Elon left the lab, he heard Tafari muttering to himself about thermal regulation and storage efficiency. Some things never changed. Even after all these years, his friend was still the practical one, turning dreams into reality. And maybe that was exactly what SpaceX needed, what Elon needed. A friend who saw things differently, who could help bridge the gap between vision and reality. For the first time in years, Elon felt the pure excitement of their childhood dreams resurface. Together, they might actually do this. Not just help people on Earth, but build the path to a new world among the stars. Tafari's first week at SpaceX passed in a blur of activity. Each morning, he woke before his alarm, still surprised to find himself in a bed instead of on cardboard under a freeway. He'd shower, dress in the new clothes Elon had provided, and walk the short distance to the SpaceX building, coffee in hand. The routine felt strange after years of unpredictability on the streets. Having a place to return to each night, food in the refrigerator, hot water whenever he wanted it, simple things that now felt like luxuries. At work, Tafari split his time between the emergency housing project and the Mars habitat designs. He worked mostly alone, getting comfortable with the technology and systems before joining team meetings. The few engineers assigned to help him were polite but distant, clearly wondering who this newcomer was and why Elon Musk himself had brought him in. On Friday afternoon, Tafari sat in his small office, staring at his phone. He needed to call Zola. Their weekly check-in was a ritual he'd maintained even during his darkest days on the streets, finding payphones or borrowing cell phones from shelter workers. Now he had his own phone again, but a new problem. What to tell her? How to explain his sudden change in circumstances without revealing the whole truth? He dialed her number, his heart pounding. "Dad?" Zola's voice filled him with warmth. "I was just thinking about you." "Hey, sweetie, how's classes?" "Brutal. Professor Chen's astrophysics midterm almost killed me. But I think I aced it. That's my girl." They talked about her classes, her roommates, the research project she hoped to join. Then came the question he was dreading. "So, how are you finding any work yet?" Tafari gripped the phone tighter. "Actually, yes. I got a job. Engineering work." "That's amazing. Where? Doing what?" "It's a small project, temporary position." He couldn't bring himself to say SpaceX, not yet. "Housing design work." "That's great. Does it pay well? Do you have your own place now?" "It's decent pay, and yes, I have an apartment near work. Nothing fancy, but it's nice." "I'm so happy for you, Dad. I've been worried." The guilt stabbed at Tafari's heart. Had she known all along how bad things were? Had his efforts to protect her just caused more worry? "I'm fine, Zola. Better than fine now." "When can I visit? Spring break is coming up in a month." Panic flashed through him. A month wasn't enough time. He wasn't ready for her to see him here, to learn the truth about where he'd been. "Let's plan for after your finals," he suggested. "You'll have more time then." After hanging up, Tafari put his head in his hands. The lies were piling up. Soon he would have to tell her everything, about his homelessness, about Elon, about this unexpected second chance. But not yet. Not until he was sure this new life would last. That evening, as Tafari walked back to his apartment, he noticed a group of engineers from SpaceX entering a bar across the street. One of them, a tall man with glasses, pointed at Tafari and said something to the others. They laughed. Tafari quickened his pace, head down. He'd heard the whispers around the building, people wondering who he was, why he had special access to Elon Musk, why he had his own lab in his apartment. He heated a frozen dinner and ate standing at the counter, a habit from years of having no table. His phone buzzed with a text from Elon. "How was your first week?" Tafari typed back, "Good. Making progress. Team meeting Monday, 9 a.m. Time to share your ideas." Tafari stared at the message, anxiety building in his chest. A team meeting meant facing all those curious, suspicious eyes, people who had worked at SpaceX for years, who had proper credentials and up-to-date skills. What could he possibly offer them? That night, Tafari couldn't sleep. The comfortable bed felt strange. The silence of the apartment was oppressive after years of street noise. He grabbed a blanket and lay down on the floor beside the couch, finding strange comfort in the hardness beneath him. Old habits. "I need to break old habits," he whispered to himself. As he finally drifted to sleep, Tafari's mind filled with the Mars habitat designs he'd been studying all week. In his dreams, he walked on the red soil of another world, building shelters, not just for astronauts, but for people who had lost everything and needed a fresh start. People like him. Morning came, and with it, a new determination. Tafari got up from the floor, made his bed properly, and stood for a long time looking out his window at the SpaceX building in the distance. This was his chance to rebuild. Not just shelters, but his life, his relationship with his daughter, his future. He just needed to prove himself first, to the engineers who doubted him, to Elon who believed in him, and most of all, to himself. Monday morning arrived with a knot of tension in Tafari's stomach. He dressed with extra care, wearing the nicest of his new clothes, dark slacks and a blue button-down shirt. He needed to look the part of an engineer today. The conference room was already full when he arrived. 15 engineers and designers sat around a large table with Elon at the head. All eyes turned to Tafari as he entered. "Good, you're here," Elon said casually, as if Tafari's presence was perfectly normal. "Everyone, this is Tafari Nelson, leading our Special Projects Division. He'll be sharing some insights on both the emergency housing and Mars habitat designs." Tafari nodded nervously and took the empty seat beside Elon. He recognized Marcus, the young engineer who had helped him in his first days. The others were strangers, their faces a mix of curiosity and skepticism. "Let's see what you've got," Elon said, gesturing for Tafari to begin. Taking a deep breath, Tafari connected his tablet to the room's display system. His hands shook slightly as he pulled up his designs. "I've been reviewing the current Mars habitat models," he began, his voice steadier than he felt, "and I see some issues with the living spaces." For the next 20 minutes, Tafari explained his concerns and proposed solutions. As he spoke, his nervousness faded. This was engineering, the language he'd spoken his entire adult life, even if there had been a long pause in the conversation. "The critical problem is perspective," he concluded. "We're designing these habitats from an engineering standpoint, focusing on systems and efficiency, but we need to design them from a human standpoint, what people actually need to survive and thrive in isolated, confined spaces." A heavy silence followed. Then a man at the far end of the table cleared his throat. Tafari recognized him as Vince Chen, the head of Habitat Systems. "With all due respect," Vince said, his tone suggesting little respect at all, "we've been working on these designs for years. The systems are tested and proven. What exactly are your qualifications to suggest such major changes?" The question hung in the air. Tafari felt every eye in the room on him, waiting for his answer. What could he say? That living under a freeway had taught him about shelter design? Before he could respond, Elon spoke. "Tafari brings a unique perspective that's valuable to this project. His background is different from yours, and that's precisely why I brought him in." Vince's expression hardened. "Differently? How? We don't even know where he came from. Suddenly, he's leading a vision." "I trust him," Elon said firmly. "That should be enough." The room fell uncomfortably silent. Tafari could feel the tension, the unasked questions. Who was he? Why was he here? What was his connection to Elon Musk? After the meeting, Tafari returned to his lab, shaken. He'd held his own in the presentation, but the suspicion was clear. He was an outsider, unproven, possibly unqualified. Over the next 2 weeks, Tafari worked harder than ever. He arrived early, stayed late, and spent every moment proving he belonged. Slowly, some of the engineers began to warm to him. Marcus became a regular visitor to his lab, impressed by Tafari's practical approach to design problems. A few others followed, bringing questions, sharing ideas. But Vince Chen remained coldly distant. Whenever Tafari entered a room, Vince would find a reason to leave. In meetings, he questioned every suggestion Tafari made, no matter how small. "Don't take it personally," Marcus told Tafari one afternoon. "Vince wants to lead the Mars Habitat project himself. He sees you as competition." Tafari nodded, understanding, but still bothered by the hostility. He needed allies at SpaceX, not enemies. At his apartment, new challenges emerged. Though his body had adjusted to sleeping in a bed again, his mind struggled with the quiet and safety. After years of constant vigilance on the streets, Tafari experienced panic attacks at night, waking suddenly, heart racing, certain he was in danger. He began leaving the TV on for background noise, checking the locks 3-4 times before bed. Small rituals to ease the transition from homelessness to housing. Then came the email from Zola. "Great news, Dad. My quantum physics professor canceled our midterm review, so I can come visit next weekend instead of waiting for spring break. Can't wait to see your new place and job. Love you." Tafari stared at the message in horror. Next weekend? 3 days away? He wasn't ready. His apartment barely looked lived in. His position at SpaceX was still tenuous, and how would he explain knowing Elon Musk? That night, Tafari couldn't sleep at all. He paced his apartment, mind racing with scenarios, each worse than the last. Zola would be disappointed in him, angry about his lies, or worse, she would pity him. The next morning, dark circles under his eyes, Tafari arrived at work to find an urgent message from Elon. "Emergency meeting, main conference room, now." His heart pounded. Tafari hurried to the meeting. Had Elon changed his mind? Was the project canceled? Was he being let go? The conference room was empty except for Elon and Vince Chen. The tension between them was palpable. "Tafari," Elon said, his voice unusually formal. Vince has raised concerns about your qualifications and background. Serious concerns. Vince looked coldly at Tafari. I took the liberty of researching your employment history. There's a significant gap in your resume. Years, in fact. Care to explain where you've been working for the past 2 years? The question hit Tafari like a physical blow. This was his worst fear, his homelessness exposed, his shame made public. I don't see how that's relevant to my current work, Tafari said carefully. It's relevant because we're working on billion-dollar projects here, Vince turned to Elon. For all we know, he could be industrial espionage or just a charity case you felt sorry for. Either way, he doesn't belong here. Tafari looked at Elon, waiting for him to defend their arrangement. But Elon's face was unreadable. For a terrible moment, Tafari thought he might agree with Vince. Finally, Elon spoke. The truth is, Tafari and I have known each other since childhood. We grew up together in South Africa. Vince looked surprised but still suspicious. And the gap in his employment? Vince said, still pushing. Personal issues, Elon said firmly, which are none of your business. What matters is the quality of his work, which I've personally reviewed and approved. Tafari released the breath he'd been holding. Elon hadn't revealed everything. Furthermore, Elon continued, his voice hardening, I don't appreciate you investigating my employees behind my back. If you have concerns, you bring them to me directly. Vince's face flushed. I was only thinking of the company's interests, Vince said. No, Elon said, standing. You were thinking of your own interests. This conversation is over. Tafari stays. His work speaks for itself. After Vince left, Tafari slumped in his chair. Thank you, he said quietly. He's going to keep digging, Elon warned. People like Vince don't give up easily. I know. Tafari rubbed his temples. And now I have another problem. Zola is coming this weekend. She wants to see where I work, where I live. So tell her the truth. I can't. Not yet. Not until I'm sure this is going to work. Elon sighed. At some point, you'll have to trust her, Tafari, just like you had to trust me. That afternoon, Tafari threw himself into his work, trying to forget about Vince's accusations and Zola's impending visit. He was making good progress on a new design for the emergency shelters when Marcus burst into his lab. Tafari, you need to see this. Marcus showed him a company email on his tablet. It was from Vince to the entire engineering department. Team reminder, all design changes must follow proper protocols. Recent adjustments to the Mars habitat designs have bypassed essential safety reviews. Please direct any concerns to me directly. Vince Chen, senior engineer. He's trying to shut down your work, Marcus said, saying you're not following protocols. Tafari read the email again, anger building in his chest. But I've submitted everything properly. All my designs have gone through the standard review process. Everyone knows that it's a power play. Tafari spent the rest of the day carefully documenting every submission, every approval, every protocol he'd followed. He wouldn't give Vince any ammunition. That evening, exhausted and stressed, he returned to his apartment to find water leaking from the ceiling. A burst pipe in the unit above. The landlord promised to fix it, but not until tomorrow. Tafari spent hours moving his few possessions, mopping up water and setting out buckets. By midnight, the leak had slowed but not stopped. Tafari sat on his damp couch, phone in hand, staring at Zola's email about her visit. He needed to respond to say something, but what? Finally, he typed, "Can't wait to see you. Text me when your flight lands." It wasn't a solution, but it was all he could manage right now. Sleep came fitfully, interrupted by dripping water and anxiety dreams. In the morning, Tafari dragged himself to work, exhausted and on edge. In his lab, he found his workstation had been accessed overnight. Files moved. Designs altered. Someone had tampered with his work. "Marcus," Tafari called when the young engineer passed by. "Did you use my computer last night?" "No, why?" Someone did. Together, they reviewed the system logs. The access had come from Vince's account at 8:37 p.m. He had changed several critical measurements in Tafari's latest shelter design, changes that would make the structure unsafe. "This is sabotage," Marcus whispered. "You need to report this." "I need proof first." Tafari restored his original designs from backup, then added a hidden marker, a small inconsequential detail that would allow him to prove if someone altered his work again. The day passed in intense anticipation. Tafari kept expecting Vince to appear to challenge him, but the senior engineer stayed away. The waiting was almost worse than confrontation. That afternoon, Tafari received a text from Zola. Flight booked, arriving Saturday at 10 a.m., so excited to see your new life. The words hit him like a physical blow. My new life? A life built on lies, on hiding his shame, on pretending he hadn't spent 2 years homeless. How could he face his daughter? How could he show her his sparse apartment, explain his strange connection to Elon Musk, or justify his sudden return to engineering after years of silence? The pressure from Vince, from Zola's visit, and from his own unprocessed trauma crushed down on him all at once. Tafari felt his chest tighten, his breathing shallow. A panic attack, like the ones he'd experienced at night, only worse. He needed air. He needed to escape. Without thinking, he left the lab, walked through the building, and took the stairs to the roof. SpaceX had a small observation deck where employees sometimes ate lunch. At this hour, it was empty. Tafari stood at the edge, looking out over Los Angeles. Somewhere out there was the freeway overpass where he'd slept for months, the library where he'd used computers to email Zola, the corners where he'd panhandled when things got desperate. That had been his reality just weeks ago. Now, here he was, working for SpaceX, living in an apartment, pretending to be normal. But he wasn't normal. He would never be normal again. Maybe Vince was right. Maybe he didn't belong here. Maybe this had all been a mistake, a well-intentioned but ultimately doomed attempt by Elon to save his childhood friend. Tafari stood there as the sun began to set, lost in dark thoughts. He didn't hear the roof door open. He didn't notice he was no longer alone until a voice spoke behind him. I used to come up here too when things got overwhelming. Tafari turned to find Elon standing there, hands in his pockets, the wind ruffling his hair. How did you know where to find me? Tafari asked. Security saw you come up. They called me. Elon walked to the edge, standing beside him. When we were kids, you always climbed to high places when you were upset. Some things don't change, Tafari muttered. Everything changes, Elon said quietly. Tafari looked away. Vince has been causing problems, Elon continued. Security footage shows him at your workstation last night. You were watching? Tafari asked. I keep an eye on things, especially when someone like Vince starts throwing his weight around. Elon shook his head. He's been fired. Tafari blinked in surprise. Just like that? Sabotage isn't tolerated here. Never has been. But he'll talk. He'll tell everyone about me. Let him. His accusations will sound like the bitter complaints of a fired employee. Elon turned to face his friend. That's not why you're up here, though, is it? It's about Zola. Tafari nodded, the knot in his chest tightening. She's coming Saturday, wants to see my life, my job, my apartment. He laughed bitterly. My life that didn't exist 3 weeks ago. So tell her the truth, Elon said. Tafari's voice rose. The truth? That her father was sleeping under a freeway? That I lied to her for 2 years? That the only reason I have a roof over my head now is because my billionaire childhood friend took pity on me? That's not what happened, Elon said firmly. And you know it isn't. Tafari paced the roof, agitated. I'm living in an apartment you arranged, working at your company, pretending to be someone I'm not anymore. Who are you then? Elon asked quietly. The question stopped Tafari mid-stride. I don't know. Not an engineer. Not really. Not anymore. I've seen your work these past weeks. You're still every bit the engineer you always were. But I'm not the father Zola thinks I am. A successful, stable, reliable father. Tafari's voice broke. How do I tell her I've been lying all this time? That I let my pride keep me on the streets rather than ask for help? Elon was quiet for a moment. Can I tell you a story about failure and pride? Tafari nodded, too exhausted to argue. In 2008, both Tesla and SpaceX were on the verge of bankruptcy. I'd invested everything I had from PayPal, every penny, and it wasn't enough, Elon began. 3 rocket launches had failed. Tesla couldn't deliver cars. I was broke, sleeping on friends' couches. I remember reading about that, Tafari said, but you turned it around. Barely. The 4th rocket launch was our last chance. If it failed, both companies would have gone under. Elon's face grew somber. The night before that launch, I sat alone in my office. No one knew how bad things really were. I kept it from everyone, investors, employees, the public. My pride wouldn't let me admit I was failing. What happened? Tafari asked. I broke down completely. Sat there crying, wondering if I should just give up, accept defeat. Elon turned to Tafari then. I called my brother, told him everything. How scared I was, how I'd failed, how I didn't know if I could go on. That must have been hard. The hardest thing I've ever done, admitting I wasn't invincible, that I needed help. Elon smiled slightly. Know what he said? Finally, he said, now we can actually solve this. Tafari absorbed this, surprised to hear such vulnerability from someone the world saw as unstoppable. The rocket launched successfully the next day, Elon continued. We secured more funding. Both companies survived. But if I hadn't let go of my pride that night, if I hadn't admitted how broken I was, he shrugged. Who knows? Zola isn't your brother, Tafari said. She's my child. I'm supposed to protect her, not burden her with my failures. She's an adult now, and hiding the truth isn't protecting her. It's protecting yourself. The words hit Tafari hard because he knew they were true. His lies weren't for Zola's benefit, but for his own. I'm afraid, he admitted, his voice barely audible above the wind. Afraid she'll be ashamed of me. Or maybe she'll be proud that you survived, that you never gave up. Elon put his hand on Tafari's shoulder. Trust her, Tari, like you trusted me. They stood in silence, watching the city lights come on as darkness fell. Finally, Tafari nodded. I'll tell her, everything, when she comes. Good, Elon said, heading toward the door. Now come back inside. We have work to do. Tafari followed, feeling lighter somehow. The panic had subsided, replaced by a quiet resolution. The truth would be painful, but continuing the lies would be worse. The next day, Tari arrived early at SpaceX, determined to focus on work rather than his anxiety about Zola's visit. The news of Vince's firing had spread quickly. Some engineers seemed relieved, others curious about what had happened. Marcus stopped by Tafari's lab mid-morning. Everyone's talking about Vince and about you. What are they saying? That Vince tried to sabotage your work, that you must be really important to Elon, Marcus said. Tafari hesitated. Some people are putting the pieces together that you and Elon knew each other before. They're wondering about your story. Let them wonder, Tafari had decided. I'm done hiding. I'll earn my place here through my work, not my connection to Elon. That evening, Tafari cleaned his apartment thoroughly, fixing what he could of the water damage. He hung up his few clothes, neatly arranged his books on the shelf, and put fresh sheets on the bed. Zola would sleep there. He would take the couch. As he worked, his phone rang, an unknown number. Hello? Is this Tafari Nelson? Yes, this is. We're calling from UCLA Medical Center about your daughter, Zola Nelson. Tafari's heart stopped. What happened? Is she okay? She's been in an accident, a car crash. She's stable but has a broken leg and a concussion. She's asking for you. The world tilted around Tafari. I'll be right there. He called Elon in a panic, barely able to form words. Within minutes, a Tesla pulled up outside his apartment, Elon himself behind the wheel. Get in, he said. We'll be at UCLA in 20 minutes. As they sped through traffic, Tafari stared straight ahead, his mind racing with terrible possibilities. This is my punishment, he whispered, for lying to her. That's not how the world works, Elon said firmly. It was an accident, nothing more. At the hospital, Tafari ran through the emergency room doors, Elon right behind him. The nurse directed them to a room where Zola lay in a hospital bed, her leg in a cast, a bandage on her forehead. Dad, she called when she saw him. Tafari rushed to her side, taking her hand. I'm here, baby, I'm here. Zola's eyes, so like her mother's, were filled with tears. I was trying to surprise you coming early, but then this car ran a red light. Shh, it doesn't matter. You're okay, that's all that matters. As Zola calmed down, she noticed Elon standing quietly by the door. Her eyes widened. Is that... Tafari took a deep breath. It was time for the truth. All of it. Zola, there's something I need to tell you about where I've been, about everything. Zola looked from her father to Elon Musk and back again, confusion in her eyes. Dad, what's going on? Why is Elon Musk here with you? Tafari sat on the edge of her hospital bed, still holding her hand. His heart pounded, but he forced himself to meet her gaze. Elon and I knew each other as children in South Africa. We were best friends. What? Zola tried to sit up, then winced at the pain. You never told me that. There's a lot I haven't told you. Tafari took a deep breath. These past 2 years, I haven't been staying with friends. I haven't been working temporary jobs. He told her everything. Losing his job, becoming homeless, living under the freeway. all while pretending to her that things were fine. As he spoke, tears ran down his face, but he didn't stop. Couldn't stop now that the truth had started flowing. I was ashamed, he finished. Too proud to ask for help, too ashamed to tell you. Zola was crying too, squeezing his hand so tightly it hurt. All this time you were homeless, and you never told me? I didn't want you to worry, to give up your education to help me, but that should have been my choice. Anger flashed through her tears. I could have helped, found a way. I know that now, Tafari hung his head. I'm sorry, Zola, so sorry. Elon stepped forward. Your father has been working with me at SpaceX for the past month on a special project. He's doing important work. Zola looked at Elon, then back at her father. Is that true? Tafari nodded. It is, but it doesn't excuse my lies. To his surprise, Zola pulled him into a fierce hug. Dad, I knew something was wrong. I could hear it in your voice. I checked homeless shelters in LA, looking for you whenever I could. You knew? Tafari pulled back, stunned. I suspected. That's why I was coming early, to find you. She wiped her tears. I'm still angry you didn't tell me, but I understand why you didn't. Tafari felt a weight lift from his shoulders, not completely, but enough that he could breathe again. I promise, no more lies, no more hiding. Zola turned to Elon. Thank you for helping my dad. He's helping me too, Elon said, more than he realizes. The doctor came in then, explaining that Zola needed to stay overnight for observation. Tari refused to leave her side, so Elon arranged for a cot to be brought in. I'll pick you up tomorrow, Elon told Tari. We have that presentation to prepare for. After Elon left, Zola had more questions. Tafari answered everything honestly. About his time on the streets, about reconnecting with Elon, about the Mars Habitat Project, the design of living spaces for Mars. Your design, living spaces for Mars? Zola's eyes lit up, despite her injuries. Yeah, Tafari said modestly. It's just beginning, but yes, it's pretty amazing. They talked until Zola drifted off to sleep. Tari watched her, wondering how he'd been lucky enough to have such a daughter and foolish enough to think he needed to protect her from the truth. The next morning, Elon picked them both up. The doctor had cleared Zola to leave with instructions to rest and return for a checkup in a week. Where can I take you? Elon asked. I want to see where my dad works, she said firmly. If that's okay. And so, Tarun's daughter, with her leg in a cast and using crutches, got a personal tour of SpaceX from Elon Musk himself. Her eyes widened at the rocket assembly floor, the testing facilities, the labs filled with cutting-edge technology. When they reached Tafari's lab, she examined his designs with keen interest. This is similar to what we're studying in my advanced physics class, she said. Atmospheric pressure regulation in non-AR environments. Your father has added some revolutionary ideas, Elon said, approaches no one else considered. Zola looked at Tafari with new respect. Can I see where you're living now? At the apartment? Tafari felt ashamed of its sparseness, but Zola hobbled around on her crutches, examining everything with approval. It's nice, Dad, simple but nice, she touched his arm. It's so much better than where you were. Yes, he said softly. It is. Zola stayed for 3 days, sleeping in Ari's bed while he took the couch. Having her there transformed the apartment from a temporary shelter to a home. They talked for hours, rebuilding the trust that his lies had damaged. When she left, promising to return as soon as her exams were done, Tafari felt renewed. The shame that had weighed him down for so long had not disappeared entirely, but it had lightened enough for him to stand tall again. At work, his confidence grew. Without Vince's constant undermining, Tafari's ideas gained traction. The emergency shelter prototypes moved from design to initial construction. The Mars Habitat concepts evolved, incorporating his unique perspective on what humans truly needed to thrive in isolated environments. 1 month into his 3-month trial period, Elon called Tafari to the main engineering floor. A prototype of one of his shelter designs had been built, a compact but ingeniously designed unit that could house 2 people comfortably. We're going to test it, Elon announced. In real-world conditions? Tafari asked. Where? Under the freeway, where you used to live. With real homeless individuals, volunteers who will give us feedback. Tafari was stunned. You're serious? Completely, and I want you to oversee the testing. Who better? Returning to his old neighborhood was harder than Tafari had expected. The faces were familiar. Some people greeted him by name, surprised to see him cleaned up, employed, transformed. Taff? The woman in the wheelchair he'd known approached him. Is that really you? It's me, Denise. Look at you, all fancy now. Tafari introduced her to the prototype shelter and explained how it worked, the features designed to provide security, comfort, and dignity. You made this? She asked, rolling herself inside to inspect it. I designed it, based partly on my experiences here. Denise looked at him with new understanding. So you didn't forget us when you got out? No, Tafari said firmly. I didn't forget. Over the next weeks, the prototype shelters proved remarkably successful. The feedback from Denise and other test users led to further improvements. Elon approved production of 50 units as a pilot program. At the same time, Tafari's Mars habitat designs advanced rapidly. The team, now led by Marcus after Vince's departure, embraced Tafari's practical approach to human-centered design. Zola called every few days, excited about both her father's work and her upcoming graduation. I've applied for an internship at SpaceX, she told him. Don't tell Elon, I want to get it on my own merits. Tafari smiled at his daughter's pride, so similar to his own. I won't say a word. 2 months into his trial period, Tafari was no longer an outsider at SpaceX. His colleagues respected him. His designs were moving forward. His apartment felt like home. Even his nightmares and panic attacks had subsided. One evening, Elon stopped by his lab. How does it feel being back in the world? Tafari considered the question. Like waking up from a long nightmare, scary at first, then relieving. Your 3-month trial is almost up. I know. Have you thought about what comes next? Tafari looked at his designs spread across the screens around him. Shelters for the homeless, habitats for Mars, bridges between his past and future. I have some ideas, he said, smiling. Some pretty big ideas. 6 months after Tafari's first day at SpaceX, the company hosted a major press event. Reporters and cameras filled the main presentation hall. Industry leaders, government officials, and investors sat in the front rows, eager to hear about the latest innovations from Elon Musk's space company. Behind the stage, Tafari adjusted his new suit, his first since becoming homeless. Beside him, Zola beamed with pride. She had graduated from UCLA 3 weeks earlier and had indeed secured an internship at SpaceX, completely on her own merits. Nervous? She asked. Terrified, Tafari admitted. I'm an engineer, not a public speaker. You'll be great, she straightened his tie. Just remember what you told me. This isn't about you. It's about the work. Tafari smiled at his daughter's wisdom. In the months since their reunion in the hospital, their relationship had grown stronger than ever. No more secrets, no more shame. Ladies and gentlemen, Elon's voice came through the speakers as he took the stage. Thank you for joining us today for a special announcement about the future of space travel. The audience applauded. Camera flashes lit up the room. For years, SpaceX has been working to make life multiplanetary, to build a path to Mars. Elon's voice filled with passion. Today, we're announcing a breakthrough in Mars habitat technology that will make sustainable life on the red planet possible. Slides appeared on the giant screen behind him. The habitat designs Tafari had been working on for months. The audience murmured with interest. These habitats represent a fundamental shift in our approach, Elon continued. Until now, we've designed Mars structures from an engineering perspective, focusing on systems and efficiency. But these new designs start with the human experience. What people need to not just survive, but thrive in isolated, confined environments for years at a time. More slides showed the interior layouts, the innovative use of space, the psychological considerations built into every aspect. This breakthrough wasn't made by our regular teams, Elon said. It came from a special project division led by someone with a unique perspective. He paused. I'd like to introduce the lead designer of our new Mars habitats, my longtime friend and colleague, Tafari Nelson. Tark's heart pounded as he walked onto the stage. The lights were blinding, the audience a blur of faces. He stood beside Elon, trying to appear calm. Tafari and I have known each other since childhood, Elon told the audience. We grew up together in South Africa, building rockets and dreaming of space. He turned to Tafari. Now he's helping make those dreams a reality. As planned, Tafari stepped to the microphone and explained the key features of the habitat designs. His voice shook at first but grew stronger as he focused on the work he was proud of. After the presentation, reporters crowded around asking questions about the habitats, but also about his background, his relationship with Elon, and his sudden emergence at SpaceX. "How did you and Elon reconnect after all these years?" one journalist asked. "That's a personal story," Tafari said carefully, sticking to their agreed answer. But another reporter pushed harder. "Sources say you were experiencing homelessness before joining SpaceX. Is that true?" Tafari felt his chest tighten. They had anticipated some questions about his past, but nothing so direct. He glanced at Elon, who gave a subtle nod. It was Tafari's choice how to respond. "Yes," Tafari said simply. "I was homeless for a period before joining SpaceX." The admission caused a stir among the reporters. Questions flew at him from all directions. How long was he homeless? How did he end up on the streets? Was this just a heartwarming story of Elon Musk rescuing an old friend? Elon stepped in. "That's enough. Personal questions. Today is about the Mars habitats. Tafari's design work speaks for itself." But the reporters had found a more interesting angle. By evening, news outlets were running stories with headlines like "Homeless to Mars," "Elon Musk gives old friend a second chance," and "The heartwarming rescue behind SpaceX's latest innovation." Tafari read the stories on his tablet, sitting in his office with Zola and Elon. "I'm sorry," Elon said. "We should have been better prepared for this." "It's not your fault," Tafari set the tablet down. "But they're missing the point, making it sound like charity, like you saved me." "Does it matter what they think?" Zola asked. "It matters to me," Tafari said. "They're turning my work into a human interest story, talking about my homelessness instead of the habitats." Elon nodded thoughtfully. "You're right, but maybe there's a way to change the narrative." "How?" Tafari asked. "With what you were telling me yesterday, your big ideas." Tafari hesitated. "It's not ready yet." "It's ready enough," Elon stood. "Come with me, both of you." He led them to a different section of the SpaceX campus, a laboratory Zola had never seen before. Inside, a small team of engineers was working on what looked like a scaled-down version of Tafari's emergency shelter. "What is this?" Zola asked. "Your father's other project," Elon said. "The one he's been developing in parallel with the Mars habitats." Tafari stepped forward. "After testing the emergency shelters, I realized we could take the concept further, create not just temporary shelters, but permanent, low-cost housing units. Modular, easy to construct, energy efficient." He showed Zola the designs on a nearby screen. These could be built for a fraction of the cost of conventional housing. They could help not just the homeless, but anyone struggling with housing insecurity. "Wow," Zola said. "This is amazing, Dad." Elon turned to Tafari. "This is the real story we should be telling. Not that I helped you, but that your experience with homelessness is helping thousands of others." Tafari looked at the prototype, the months of work his team had put into it. "You're right, but there's something else the media doesn't know. Something I just discovered myself." He led them to his computer and pulled up an old file dated 2 years earlier. This was the original concept for these housing units. It was being tested in a small program in Los Angeles. "I don't understand," Zola said. "The social media post where Elon spotted me, it was taken at one of these test sites." Tafari looked at his friend. "You didn't find me by accident, did you?" Elon's expression gave nothing away. "What makes you say that?" "Because I recognize the shelter designs in your files. They were based on concepts I'd worked on years ago before I lost my job, concepts I submitted to a housing innovation competition." "Is that true?" Zola asked Elon. Elon was quiet for a moment. "I funded that competition anonymously. When your father's design came across my desk, I recognized his name immediately. I lost track of him after that until I saw that news photo." "So you knew about my work before you found me?" Tafari said slowly. "I knew your name was on a brilliant housing design. Then I saw your face in that homeless encampment and realized it was the same person." Elon shrugged. "The rest, you know." Tafari absorbed this revelation. "So I was already helping people, even when I was homeless myself? My designs were already out there being tested?" "Yes," Elon said simply. "That's the real story, Tafari. Not that I rescued you, but that your ideas were valuable all along. You just needed the chance to develop them further." As Tafari stood there, the full circle of his journey suddenly clear. He felt a weight lift from his shoulders. "This wasn't charity," he said. "This wasn't rescue. This was collaboration between two old friends with complementary visions. That's what we tell the media, he said firmly. The whole truth. Where are you watching from? Thanks for joining me for The Promise of Yesterday. I hope this story of friendship, second chances, and the unexpected ways our paths can reconnect touched your heart. I'd love to know, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your location in the comments below. If this story moved you, please hit that like button to help spread a little kindness and hope to others who might need it today. Your simple click helps more people discover stories that remind us of our shared humanity. And if you enjoyed this journey with Elon and Tafari, don't miss the video appearing on your screen right now for another inspiring story that might just change your perspective on friendship and perseverance. Until next time, remember that sometimes our greatest challenges can become our most valuable gifts to the world.